St. Andrew's Center for Philosophy and Performing Arts welcome you all to this book discussion of Halla, The Death and Life of Safdar Hashmi, written by Sundara Deshpande. I shall be introducing this afternoon to you what all we're going to do in the next 65 to 75 minutes. A lot of us who have gathered here know about the book, and a lot of us do not. So I will formally read about the book first. This is not a story of death, it's a story of life, rather the luminous life of Safdar Hashmi, extraordinary in all its ordinariness. Safdar Hashmi was only 34 when he died from injuries sustained during a senseless attack. On New Year's Day in 1989, Jananatya Manch, Janam, the theatre group he was part of, or which he led, was attacked while performing a street play on the outskirts of Delhi. Beginning with the record of the attack that killed him, this vivid memoir illuminates the life of Safdar Hashmi, artist, poet, writer, actor, activist, and a man everyone loved. But this is not a book about one man or one tragic incident. Halla shows us close up how one man's death and life are intertwined with the stories of many people. It shows the intersections between cultural practice and working class politics, the profound link between ideology and real life struggle. For a generation that grew up without knowing Safdar Hashmi, Halla renders his passion, his humor, and humanism in an intimate portrait. It also gives us an understanding of resistance and the strength to put it in practice. The ideas that Safdar and his colleagues grapple with during a period of tumult and change in India are harbingers of society we are today. Started with details about the making of Janam's iconic street plays such as Machine and Halla and the staging of them at street corners, the book's nimble prose reads like a well-crafted play. This book is written by Sundara Deshpande. Sudhanva Deshpande. And we are honored to have him with us. To talk about Sudhanva Deshpande, he's a theatre director, actor. He joined Jananatya Manch in 1987 and has acted in over 4,000 performances of over 80 plays. His articles and essays have appeared in the Drama Review, The Hindu, Frontline, Seminar, Economic and Political Weekly, Udbhavna, Samaj Prabodhan Patrika, among others, and he has co-directed 2 films on the theatre legend Habib Tanveer and his company Naya Theatre. He is the editor of the Theatre of the Streets, the Jananatya Manch, Experience, and co-editor of Our Stage, Pleasures and Perils of Theatre Practice in India. He has held teaching positions at the National Institute of Design, Ahmedabad, the AJK Mass Communication Research Center, Jamia Millia, New Delhi, and since 1988, he has been managing editor of Left World Books, and he cycles around the town. So that was about the book and the author. Yes, I'm going to exit the stage in a minute. So the flow of the afternoon is as follows. We have a panel discussion on the book, and it's an all-women panel for today, which includes Nandita Das, Annie Zedi, and Muleshri Hashmi. They shall provide their thoughts about the book in the following order: Nandita Das, followed by Annie Zedi, followed by Muleshri Hashmi. And to these thoughts, the author would respond, followed by which we'll have a Q&A with the panel and the author. And at the end of it, we'll be reading an excerpt from the play Halla by the Janam actors. That's our afternoon. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And the reading of the excerpt will include Nandita, who will be reading her original role in the play Halla, which we had first done in 1988. So
yeah, I've done almost 50 shows of that.
Yeah. So, over to you, madam.
My God. No, I mean, I have to make a confession that I haven't read the book yet. Um, it's difficult to comment on the book per se, but I've known Sudhanva forever. And I always have said in many places and to my own self, reminded my own self, that Safdar was one of my first mentors. When you're 17, Sudhanva was my classmate. You don't have to believe it because he looks much older, but that's fine.
I'm as young as she is.
That's true, or I'm as old as he is. But I have to thank him because he's the one who introduced me to Janam, to Safdar, to Mala, to Vijay Kalia, to various other people who form the group. And while I did have a lot of art in my family, my father is a painter, mother a writer, there were they were naturally very inclusive and secular and all of that, but I didn't really know the isms. And I always owe it to Janam, to Safdar, to Mala, to Sudhanva, to everyone for my socio-political understanding and training. Had I not had that experience, I don't think I would have been the person that I am or the choices I've made in my life. So I have a huge pile of books, but this is right on top because I know this is going to be very precious. Apart from all the memories that I've had, there's so much more that there is to know about Safdar. And it's not just about Safdar, it's about the legacy that the group has continued. And especially Mala and Sudhanva, who have really carried on the work. And I was seeing the contents while coming in that, you've really sort of gone through the whole experience of right from the beginning. Also, it's lovely that you have dedicated to your parents. My first street play was actually with Sudhanva's mother. He said Comrade I, please do get the book, by the way. Because it's going to be... Yes. No, but it's really, I would say that, without any hesitation, that this is a book to be got. This is a book to be treasured because there are going to be so many amazing stories of this man. And often we always tend to praise a person when he's no more. We always think that this person is sort of nicer than what he was. And hand on my heart, but I can tell you that this man was really everything that Sudhanva has probably captured here and more, because my every piece of memory that I can string together would remind me the various ways in which we used to rehearse. We used to rehearse in a garage, in an open space of the C2 office, wasn't it? Just in the garden at the back. All of us used to do different things. I was a student, he was a student, somebody was a professional, she was a teacher in the school that I studied in much later. But, so everybody was doing different things. We would come in the evening, we would discuss the play. It wasn't just for the play, we would actually get educated in that particular subject. Then we would rehearse, we would go in DTC buses. Jogi, who's probably going to come to another event, I would suggest you go to all of them because there are going to be new stories in each one of them. He would play the dholak, Safdar would sing. He was one of the most charismatic people that I've ever met in my entire life. Everybody was in love with him. And little children, old people, you know how street theatre is. People just walk in. You must have seen them performing machine. People just walk in, nobody gives any money. So it's not like you don't have to be there. And what would happen suddenly in a moment of very serious dialogues, a dog would walk in, would decide to crack up everybody, or some little child would start crying, or an old man would shout across the street theatre group and say something to the other person. And Safdar would be most spontaneous and would somehow wrap everybody on his finger that, he was a natural charmer. And very few people who are so deeply talented and yet don't wear it on their sleeves at all. In times where, we're posturing so much even about being liberal, to just have that kind of authenticity. I know I'm sort of rambling a little bit and going from one thing to the other because that's how memories are. They are not sort of so linear. But he's the person who taught me that art and activism don't have to be different. Today, a lot of us are talking about it. It's a big debate. Can art not be for art's sake? Does art have to be a means to social change? I'm constantly asked, why can't you do more commercial films? You would reach out to more people, etc. The usual, narrative around it. But he was someone who believed in art as much as he believed in activism. we had to perform well. The play had to be well written. It wasn't enough to just have the right intention. He kind of married what you want to say, the content and form, the eternal dilemma, which is more important? Is it the content? Is it the form? He was someone who taught me that both are equally important. So I just want to thank Sudharma for doing this book and for bringing his life. This is a life that has to be documented. As you know, I'm just coming out of Manto and from a biopic, and of people who have really changed something in us that we don't even probably are aware of. This man has definitely changed. And it's interesting that he talks about the death first, because in a strange way, it was after his death that even street theatre got the kind of respect or the kind of place of pride in our social discourse, in our theatre world. His birthday has become a street theatre day, right? So now there are so many groups and so many people are performing all around. But we are talking about something that happened, more than 30 years ago. So he has played such a pivotal role in our own understanding of art, of activism, of engaging with what's happening around the world, that sometimes we don't even know. There are so many such people who may not have directly impacted us. I'm very fortunate that I was, but there are people that may not have been directly impacted, but he's still part of that consciousness. So yeah, I'm sure there'll be many more memories that will come flooding in, and I don't want to bore you with all of them. But I'll definitely read this book and relive those wonderful days. Thank you. I have to ask you a question, Sundara. No? Shouldn't I be asking you a question?
Well, let's have
I haven't. Yeah, let's sort of do that, and I'm sure something will pop up.
So I have read the book and I have reviewed it. I'll say something about how I responded to the book as a writer, because I'm a writer and I do write plays as well. I was interested in theatre in college, but the idea of theatre as a medium of change wasn't really something in the air around me. And I was in college after Safdar had been killed. I'm talking about the late 90s. In India, when we grow up and we have creative aspirations, performance aspirations, writing ambitions, we are taught to view creativity as something indulgent and firstly not as crucial even to your own well-being or to social well-being in general. And secondly, we are not taught to view it on the continuum of politics and on the continuum of engagement with society. I think reading Halla, one of the things that struck me was all the different ways in which this is achieved and all the different ways in which society works so hard to prevent you from thinking. Safdar was one of those people who perhaps through an accident of time, fate, the kind of parents he had, the kind of times he grew up in, whatever it may have been, he turned out to be one of those people who did learn to think. His father happened to be somebody who leaned towards the left. He happened to invest in books. He happened to be in Delhi, where he found the kind of groups and the kind of leftist activism that was in the air at the time, in the 70s and 80s. He happened to find people like Mala to work with and to live with. And he happened to find, as he grew older, other young people whom he could mentor, like Sundara, like Nandita. A lot of these are just accidents in time, space. And some of it is about choices. What happens to a talented person in our society is that if you show a little bit of talent, very quickly you are co-opted by those who can put your talent in the service of various kind of structures, institutions, whose impact is limited. So that's the other thing that struck me about Safdar, that he chose consistently, like one thing after another. Immediately after college, joined a group, found it wasn't doing what it should be doing, broke away, founded a group with others that could do more in his own estimation. very quickly was constantly challenging things, was having conferences about art, about craft, about trying to give the people who were part of his troupe the tools with which they could work, improve their skills, all of that. And I found that this is what theatre people should be doing. I'm not even talking about the fact that his politics was leftist. Just as theatre people, you invest in people and you invest in your time and energies and your talents in trying to engage with society, trying to bring the discourse of rights into your own work and trying to put that back into society. I was very struck by that. And I was also struck by how few people there are who are doing it. The other thing, of course, about the book itself is that it is a fabulous read. It begins with the description of Safdar's, I shouldn't say death, I should keep saying killing because that is exactly what it was. Yeah. And also, what is striking about this narrative, it goes into granular detail of the whole group being out there in Delhi. Sudhanva was there, Mala was there. There were girls there, and they were being hunted down. They were being chased down the streets, each of them not knowing whether they would survive beyond that day. All of them basically just being protected by workers, by poor people who had a lot to lose. If there are goons chasing you and they are willing to kill, the workers were themselves at risk, but they took the risk of shielding, of protecting the people who were performing, a lot of them very young students. So at each point, one of the things this book does is it is a document of courage. I mean, courage, in our discourse, we tend to be so much about, Sena pe sipahi, and that is our idea of courage. But courage is granular. Courage is about being willing to examine ideas. It is about rejecting certain ways of life in order to make more difficult choices. It is about shielding someone when you can shield them. It is about going to the police station to ask for help, not getting help, finding institutions crumbling around you, but picking yourself up and continuing to do the work that you want to do. I think I look upon this book as a document of both craft but also courage. And I think I should stop talking now.
Thank you.
थैंक यू बोथ ऑफ यू. मैं भी किताब के बारे में नहीं बोलूँगी, मगर मैं बात यहाँ से ज़रूर शुरू करना चाहती हूँ जिसकी झलक है किताब में एक तरह से, क्योंकि सफदर की ज़िंदगी में वो था कि कई बार लोग कहते हैं कि सफदर फाउंडेड जन्म. मेरी नज़र में, और ये मैं अपनी बात सिर्फ नहीं कह रही हूँ, सफदर भी ऐसे ही सोचता था कि जन्म फाउंड हिम, एंड दैट इज़ द थिंग. अगर ये ग्रुप नहीं होता तो सफदर नहीं बनता. वाकई ये वो तह दिल से मानता था कि उसकी जो, चाहे वो लेखन की कला हो, एक्टिंग की हो, डायरेक्शन की हो, या सबके साथ मिलके काम करना हो, ऑर्गेनाइजर हो, ये जननाट्य मंच के माहौल के अंदर उसके तरह और भी लोग थे. और ये बात मैं इसलिए कह रही हूँ क्योंकि ये जननाट्य मंच की एक पहचान है कि हम लोग इकट्ठा मिलके काम करते हैं. कभी कभी कोई एक व्यक्ति का नाम होता है कि ओके फलाना नाटक जो है इसने डायरेक्ट किया, ढिमकाना ने ये गाना लिखा, सही बात है, बिल्कुल होता है. लेकिन नाटक की पूरी प्रक्रिया में या नाटक को संभव करने में, so that it's performed more and more, not just by acting, because some of us may not be actually actors but are still part of the group. That is something that the group does. And which is why I like to think that Janam is a creative collective. It's not a mindless collective for name only, but it's through the process of creation that this organization flourishes. जब ये हमारा मानना है, मतलब मेरा ही नहीं, सिर्फ ग्रुप में भी हम यही मानते हैं कि हमारी जो जिसके बारे में किताब में भी है कि इप्टा के ज़माने से जब काम शुरू हुआ था अर्ली 70s में, तो हम एक तरह से IPT, इंडियन पीपल्स थिएटर एसोसिएशन का जो बेसिक एक तरह से मैं क्या कहूँ, मतलब उसकी पहचान यही है कि कला जो है वो जनता के बीच में है. यू नो, थिएटर हैज़ टू गो टू द पीपल, या कोई भी कला, हम लोग नाटक करते हैं, तो ये जो कनेक्ट है लोगों के बीच में, ये जो है बहुत ज़रूरी है, क्योंकि इसी से जो है हमारा काम डिफाइन होता है. हम क्यों जो है फला इशू पे नाटक करते हैं और उस पे नहीं, इसका चॉइस के अंदर ये है कि हम उन लोगों के बीच में जाते हैं जहाँ पे, या उन जगहों पे जाते हैं जहाँ पे लोग रहते हैं, काम करते हैं, ज़िंदगी जीते हैं और संघर्ष करते हैं. तो ऐसा, मतलब चाहे वो कॉलेज हो या फैक्ट्री का इलाका हो, हम गांव में कम जाते हैं, लेकिन जनता के बीच में नाटक करना और बेहतरीन नाटक करना, ये एक चीज़ सफदर के अंदर बहुत ये था कि यू नो, भद्दा नाटक आप नहीं ले सकते. यू हैव टू बी द बेस्ट एक्टर, द बेस्ट डायरेक्टर, द बेस्ट लिरिसिस्ट, द बेस्ट एवरीथिंग व्हेन यू आर टेकिंग योर प्ले टू द पीपल. एंड उसके लिए जो काम करना होता है, खुद को ट्रेन करना होता है. नन ऑफ अस आर ट्रेन्ड पीपल, लेकिन खुद को ट्रेन करना और उसके लिए जो एक समय की बात होती है, वो सब इन्वेस्ट डेफिनेटली जन्म के सब लोग करते हैं. और इसीलिए जो है हम इतने साल तक सफदर के बाद भी, क्योंकि सफदर के किलिंग के बाद बहुत लोगों को ऐसा लगा था कि जननाट्यमन शायद नहीं सर्वाइव करेगा, लेकिन जननाट्यमन सर्वाइव बिकॉज that's what I said, that it was Jannatamman which nurtured Safdar, and we took it forward. So we often look back and also see what Safdar would have done or would have thought in such a situation, and often joke and laugh about it. But whatever he wrote on theatre, or whatever he wrote as terms of plays, or especially his lyrics and work for children, that is something that has been also a kind of a way of understanding our own work and responding to it and to the current work. So it's been now, Jannam was formed formally in 1973, many years ago. And many of us have been there for many years. But one thing I know, that all the people who join Jannam, they may not stay for the rest of their lives. Some of us do, but not everybody. They take away part of Jannam with them. So in one sense, there is a spread of the spirit of Jannam with everybody, you know, beyond that person's physical presence. So Nandita, yes, and Nandita is therefore considered a member of Jannam, though she doesn't live in Delhi, and you know.
But I feel it too.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is, I think, something that this group that Jannam was able to create. One of the things that I think Safdar was very conscious of was, and it again was, it defined his own creativity, that whatever he is creating has to be connected to the lives of very ordinary people. And he made that effort to, step out of the boundaries of, not that he lived in a wealthy family, but yes, they had books, which is something many people don't have. I mean, his family as such. But to step out of that and understand how the variety of people of our country who create our country actually, how they live and how to, merge with them. So that is something he would often do, even apart from performances, was to go to working class areas, and whatever struggle, or even if no struggle is happening, go and attend their meetings, go and work with them to understand. And I think that is something that got fed many years later into certainly Halla Bol, I think, Chakka Jam Halla Bol, the strike play. But even in the writing of Machine, which he and Rakesh wrote together, that flavor which you saw today, those of you who've seen it, there was something, that was, he was able to capture the reality around and put it in a play. So Safdar really, felt that whatever he did, it had to be, for the people, and increasingly he felt that the people whom he met, the creative people he met, whether they were artists or filmmakers, he would somehow rope them into something to go and do, either in Mangolpuri or to go and think of some long-term plan of going and doing something with working class areas. This is something that he was able to do, and he was not only, it wasn't simply his persona that encouraged people to come and join, but I think the truth in what he was saying, the value of art, not just activism, but art being there. I mean, his whole point was that in a slum, why shouldn't Manjeet Baba, great painter, why shouldn't his work be seen there? Because it's not seen there. And when it was seen there, of course after his killing, but when it was, people appreciated it. So that is something that he was at great pains to connect. And I think that's something that we don't often see now. Not that we saw it a lot then. There are a lot of people who are creating for movements, which is great. I mean, right now in what is happening in the country, there are people writing new poetry, new songs, creating works of art around that. But that's only when something is happening. But on a regular day-to-day level, to go and take your art to the people and go and show it to them or perform in front of them or work with them, that I think is not enough. India is a huge country, and that's something that I always feel, that there's so many people in the audience who've never seen a play, and we've done so many shows in Delhi. But that I think is what I hope that in the years to come, more and more young people, because they're the only ones who'll do it. I'm not sure that, I mean, not that old people won't, I'm sure they will. I'm not being ageist, but I think that's the future, and Sundara also felt that, and Janam feels that very strongly, that that's the future. Thank you.
Thank you. We also.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. This is special for me because I'm on a panel with three people I admire hugely. All three very dear friends in different ways, and people that I look up to. I admire their work, their art, their politics, their lives, and so on. So thank you, really, honestly. We are from Delhi, and right now things are happening in Delhi. What's unfolded in front of us over the last few days, over the last 10, 12 days, has been pretty horrific. The communal, pogrom, that's the only word that I can use. And I thought that it might be an idea for me to read out one little extract from the book. Would you prefer Hindi or English? I can.
English. Bombay is all.
English?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll read out a little extract from the book because it brings together many things that connect with today.
This is the chapter.
Yeah. Prime Minister Indira Gandhi was assassinated by her Sikh bodyguards on October 31st, 1984. The anti-Sikh pogrom that followed, which claimed over 3,000 lives, shattered many long-held assumptions about our society, about Hindu-Sikh relations, about the city of Delhi, and about the Congress party. Thousands of Sikh victims had to move to camps set up at various locations across the city, having lost their dear ones, their homes, and businesses destroyed. The embers were still smouldering, the wounds still raw, when one of the first peace marches took place in Delhi University's North Campus. The march wound its way across the campus, touching every college and some of the main faculties. It culminated at Khalsa College with a public meeting. Some speakers were to address the gathering, which had swelled to several thousands as the students of the host college joined in large numbers. Many of them were young men. They were angry, full of rage. Their eyes burnt with pain, hatred, and sadness. Talk of retribution was in the air. Now, Parcham was to perform before the speeches began. Parcham was a group of singers, and we used to often perform with Parcham. So, they would perform the songs, and we would do a play afterwards. But it was impossible to sing. The students were far too angry. Much of their anger was directed at the large posse of policemen. The police had been more than complicit in the bloodletting and destruction visited upon Delhi over the past days. The students were hardly unaware of this. An ugly situation was building up. The organizers of the peace march were apprehensive of what might happen. Safdar turned to the youngest member of Parcham, Sumangala Damodaran, a frail-looking first-year undergraduate student. He asked her to take the mic. "Sing Jaane Wale Sipahi," he told her. This was an anti-war song of the 1940s by the communist poet Makhtum Moinuddin and composed by Salil Chaudhary for the 1960 film Usne Kaha Tha. Till then, Parcham had only sung collective songs. This was their first solo song and they had never performed it before. And in fact, the plan was not to perform it that day. Right? The young singer, waif-like, was nervous. Safdar prodded her. "Don't worry, sing, just sing." Sumangala hesitated, but with Safdar behind her, she started to sing. Her mellifluous voice was unexpectedly powerful. It seemed to emerge from some deep place inside her, and the fullness of her voice belied her slight build. It carried across the assemblage which, amazingly, quietened down. As her song soared, the angry young men and women were transfixed. Something moved in them. The song spoke of a soldier as he goes to war, leaving behind his grief-stricken wife and hungry children. There is the stench of burning corpses all around. It is as if life itself is crying. "जाने वाले सिपाही से पूछो वो कहाँ जा रहा है, कौन दुखिया है जो गा रही है, भूखे बच्चों को बहला रही है, लाश जलने की बू आ रही है, जिंदगी है कि चिल्ला रही है, जाने वाले सिपाही से पूछो वो कहाँ जा रहा है." Someone in the audience started sobbing, then another, and another. In a matter of a minute or so, many were sobbing. Women and men, those who were not, were still overcome with emotion. There was hardly a dry eye to be seen. The cops, readying for action a few minutes before, were amazed to see the complete transformation of the mood. It was an utterly unlikely happening. An anti-war song of 40 years ago by a Hyderabadi communist poet with a Muslim name, composed for a 1960 film by a Bengali, sung by a young Malayali undergraduate with a Hindu name, leading to catharsis among hundreds of angry Sikh youth in the wake of a communal pogrom. Nothing matched, nothing fitted. And yet, the song, soulful and searing, connected the pain of one set of victims with another, generations, geographies, and violences apart. Beautiful. And I just thought that, it brings together for me many of the things that I've tried to do in this book. Firstly, some people have asked me this. Why did it take you so long to write this book? It's 32 years after Safdar's death or his killing that I've written this book. Part of it is a personal thing, it's emotional, whatever, all that is there. That's fine. But I think more importantly, this book was waiting for its moment. And that moment is something that we've seen over the last few years on campuses across the country, JNU, Hyderabad Central University, Jamia Millia, Aligarh, BHU, you name it. Young people are asking questions. Young people are questioning. And young people want to stand up and be counted. And they have a stake in the future of this country. And they are saying that we will not accept things the way they are going. Right? And I think that there's great energy there. I feel like this is a generation, and this has happened again and again. At Shaheen Bagh, when I've seen posters that, with Safdar's image on it. right? When my college, Ramjas College, was attacked a couple of years ago, after that there was this huge march that happened in Delhi University, like this one again. In that there were students holding up, placards that said, "We are Safdar Hashmi's inheritors," or something like that, right? And that we are not going to, take this lying down, and so on. So it just seemed to me as if there was a renewed relevance to Safdar's life, his commitments, his politics, his art, and as the speakers have already said very eloquently, for him, his life, his art, his politics, his activism were not different things. They were not in silos. That now I will be an activist, now I will be an artist. This is my personal life. No, all of it was kind of integrated, and to me, it's an example of how an honest and an honestly radical life can be lived. And when one talks about an honestly radical life, there's a way in which, as Nandita said, there's a way in which we can turn people into heroes. And Safdar was a hero for people like Nandita and myself while he lived. We all admired him hugely.
Absolutely.
We were completely in love with him. He was a wonderful, beautiful human being. Creative, passionate, energetic, and so on. But also, he was very normal. He was an ordinary human being as well, equally. And it seems to me that the specific choices he made in life are about his life, naturally. But there's a way in which I think young people today can look at that life and say, if I had to lead a radical life, if I had to lead an honestly radical life, with honesty, with truth, with integrity, how would that be? My last point is about the fact that, as the extract I read also kind of indicates, that the book is not just about Safdar Hashmi the artist. It's also about what Safdar made possible. And the other day we were chatting, and one of the senior writers in Delhi said to us कि Safdar एक ऐसी शख्सियत थी सफदर की जो कि चीज़ों को संभव करवाती थी. That he made things happen, he made things possible. And this little example that I read out from the book is an example of that. At the right moment he was there, and he, more than anyone else, understood that there's the power of this song, which in fact he had introduced to Sumi. Sumi didn't know the song.
That song became her, and for all of us,
exactly,
such an iconic song.
Absolutely. And it was a forgotten song. Safdar revived the song, he brought it back.
Really?
Yeah. He brought it back, he gave it to Sumi, he gave it to Parcham, and he said to them that, look, this is not a collective song, this has to be a solo song. Sumi is the one who has to sing it.
It's on Google, you can Google it and see it actually.
One
day I had seen it years ago.
And so he made things possible. There's a section in the book where I talk about Safdar's role in making available Ritwik Ghatak's films to us. Ritwik Ghatak's films, the way in which we see them today, the prints that we see today would not have been possible but for the invisible role that Safdar Hashmi played in that. It was a crucial role, but it was completely invisible. And he never wanted any credit for it. Why? Because for him, his art, his life, his activism, his politics was in the service of the people. There's a way in which I think today, especially with so much commercialization, with so much social media, this, that, and all the rest of it, there's posturing, there's, this, that, all of that, but it's also about building a brand, no? That all artists need to build a brand if you need to kind of be able to sell your art. And Safdar was the very antidote of that. He was a communist, and what being a communist meant to him was not just about an ideology, an ism that you carry in your jhola, right? It was about also, it was about putting your creativity in the service of the people. So for him, his art, his writing, his creativity, his activism, his life, the whole thing was in the service of the people, not in the service of capital. And I'll stop here. Thank you.
Can I just ask you a question? One of the things that makes this book work is your relationship with him, because there's the story there of how that progressed and all of that. One of the things that struck me was that again and again you emphasize how kind he was and how gently. I mean, even though he was older and while being a mentor, even then he did run things in that sense, but he was always so gentle. Would you talk about that?
Yeah.
He was a friend.
Yeah.
I mean, I think when we look back, we feel he was a mentor. At that time, it just felt like he was.
Friends can be very unkind. He sounded
he was just a kind human being. But I'll let that go.
No, yeah, you're right. So there are multiple instances in the book of, so one of the questions for me, why I wasn't able to write for such a long time was because, as I joke with friends, this is a book I've not written for 25 years. I had the first thought about writing this book 25 years ago. And for 25 years, I've not been able to write it. And then suddenly last summer, it all came together. And one of the key issues for me was, what do I do with myself in the book? Because I knew that I'm part of the story. And yet, how do I talk about myself? And so finding that voice in which I could speak about myself and place myself in the story was critical to unlocking the book. And in that, I just knew instinctively the moment I started writing, I knew that it had to be about our relationship. And there are multiple instances in the book where I do utterly idiotic things.
Give us examples, please.
So, like for instance, it might be a little bit hard for you to guess, but I stammer. I stammer a lot while speaking.
Now you don't.
I do actually.
Very little.
I actually do, but I've kind of I've learned to camouflage it and so on. Those days I used to stammer a hell of a lot. It used to be insane.
Especially with your own name.
With my own name. I could never say my own name.
S was the toughest.
And all that. So once we'd gone to Habib Tanveer's house, and there's a whole description of the relationship between Habib Tanveer and Safdar Hashmi, which was also that of a guru and shishya and friend and so on. So we had gone to his house, and Safdar said to me, "Why don't you read the story out?" We were working on a play and so on, so something had to be read, and idiotically I knew instinctively that I'm going to stammer, but it was this opportunity to be able to read to Habib Tanveer, who was a legend. Later on he became a friend. At that time I was still, it was one of my first meetings with him. So I was nervous, excited in the presence of this great man, and idiotically I said, yes, I'll read. And of course it did not go well. And Safdar he was very cool. He kept saying, "Nahi, bas abhi, matlab, he'll be fine. He'll be fine. In a minute, he'll be fine." Till finally Habib Sahib with pipe in hand. "Safdar, अगर ये माल गाड़ी ऐसी ही चलती रही के तो हम सारी शाम यहीं रहेंगे। मुझे लगता है कि अभी हमें राजधानी एक्सप्रेस की जरूरत है।
I can see Habib Sahib saying.
तुम क्यों नहीं पाते?" And so on. So, I mean, that's one small example, but also about making plays, about creativity and so on. You could say things to him. You could say that, "Look, I don't like what you've done." I mean, in terms of his creative. So there's a whole description of how the play Chakka Jam, which is the earlier version of Halla, how that play got written. And it was completely accidentally that I happened to write a couple of scenes. for that play. I didn't know I could write. Still not quite a writer in plays in that sense, and so on. But I said to Safdar, look, what you've written is great to begin with, but then it doesn't work later, and so on. So he said, how would you do it? I said, I don't know, but this doesn't work. And there was a way in which one could say all this to him, and one never felt intimidated, one never felt judged, and one could do. And there was just enormous support and kindness, holding hand, but not letting you feel like you were being, led in a very deliberate kind of way. Sorry, I'm rambling. But yeah. Absolutely. Yes.
If anyone has any questions, anyone specific or
I'll just take up from this what you just said about how you are the books. For me, I've read the book. I'm actually just 3/4 in it, and firstly, it's absolutely a riveting book. It's absolutely brilliant and riveting. And I think that what Annie asked you and what you answered is one of the most powerful ways that this book works, is by inserting yourself in it. I think whenever one inserts the personal into the political, it makes it a much more reader-friendly, audience-friendly piece of art. And you've also done it with such self-deprecation, like these examples you gave. I remember you when you were that age, but it's the way you treated yourself is also so humble and wonderful. You were a passionate student activist, very bright and amazing. And what you've done in the book is really lovely though, because like the example you're giving, you've been self-deprecatory of yourself as an author in how you've inserted yourself in the book and this.
It's all true, by the way.
Yeah,
it's not kind of made up.
It really makes it delightful, and I think that's you've taken somebody who's a legend for everybody, and you've humanized the person by bringing in your own personal relationship, and I think that's what makes brilliant storytelling. Like as I told you myself, I'm a writer-director, and I've been working with Sultan on some scripts, and I've always been a hard taskmaster. He writes fabulously, but I've always been pushing him more in when he's writing his screenplays, where I feel you've been bogged down by politics. You've been bogged down by ideology of needing to say something political, and then how does one deal with drama? And you've overcome that, and your screenplays have really become fabulous. But I'm just saying I've seen that process, and in this book, it's the opposite of that process. You have a whole generation who don't know Safdar, and you want to bring out this legend to this generation, right? So there is that ideal that you have as a person living now, and the politics of communism, and what we all felt in the 70s, 80s, and we're feeling now, to a generation who may decry communism. So how do you do all of that and make it palatable and acceptable to a generation who may not care about communism and doesn't know Safdar? And I feel you've brilliantly done it in the book, because I know a lot of the conversation is not about the book, and I wanted to talk about the book, your writing of this book. I mean, truly, it's just fantastic, and I applaud you for that. And I really recommend everybody read it. It doesn't matter if you care about these politics, if you're apolitical, if you don't know Safdar, don't want to know Safdar. It's just a really amazingly readable, wonderful book about a very important person, an important chapter of our lives and history.
Thank you, Sonali. I mean, these are very kind words. I call her my Ustani. Ustani matlab Ustad
Female
का
version.
feminine. Ustani. तो इनसे मैं बहुत डांट खाता रहता हूँ जब कुछ लिखने की कोशिश करता हूँ. So it means a lot to me that you should say so. I should just say one more thing about the writing of the book, which is that while I was writing it, I was 100% clear in my head about who I was writing for. I was writing for young people today. That was very, very strongly there in my head, which meant two things. Which meant that one had to give enough of a background for young people to be able to follow events that they had never seen, that they probably weren't born at that time, and so on. Debates that would seem kind of vague or strange to them maybe. So bring out enough of the flavor of the times, but not bog them down with detail too much. and so on, but also about the language. I've been very conscious of the fact that I want this book, I want Safdar's life to reach out to young people on the streets today. The young people who are making things happen today. These are the people for whom this book is written. And not all of them are have come with backgrounds of, English education and etc. etc. So the book is written in prose that's very simple to read. And it's been a very deliberate choice for me not to use any jargon, because as a communist, as a Marxist, jargon comes naturally to me. Like, you wake me up in the middle of the night and I can talk about the mode of production, and I can talk about the transition debate, and that's what I grew up with. So jargon comes very easily to us. And yet I was clear that I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to use jargon. I wanted to use sentences that would be understood by everybody who has some basic understanding of English. You should be able to read this book. And I was very lucky also to have 3 excellent editors who worked on the book. Vijay Prasad, my comrade, Nazif Molla, again my comrade, and Vinod Tamalya, who's a superb editor. So all 3 of them helped the crafting of the book in significant ways. But it's really written for today. I should also say that in some parts I in fact like the Hindi better than the English, because Yogender, who's a friend and a superb translator, he did a great job with the Hindi, and then I worked on it again and so on. So we kind of shaped the prose together. And in some portions it's in fact slightly better in Hindi than in English. So yeah, thank you. The Hindi and the English are both are available outside for sale. I'm also a publisher, so this is part of what I do. I'm unashamed about the fact that we need to sell books.
Absolutely.
Right? We all,
Yeah,
on that we are
should
all
be
on
no-
the same page, right?
Should be no shame in